Welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, so today we're taking a look at Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we've got some excerpts from the book, some reactions to it, and even a bit about Estes herself. Think we can unpack all that.
Oh, I think we can handle it. What I find fascinating about this book is how Estes blends storytelling, mythology, and psychology.
Right.
It's not just reading a book. It's like stepping into a whole other realm, a realm of feminine wisdom.
I like that, a realm of feminine wisdom. So the book centers around this idea of the wild woman, but it's not like just a poetic metaphor, right? It feels so much deeper.
You're right. You hit the nail on the head. The wild woman, it's like this source of instinct, intuition, a connection to nature. It's that essence of feminine power. But Estes points out that this power can be wounded or even silenced by, societal pressures.
Oh, that makes me think about all the times, as women, we're told to be quiet or to tone it down. It's like we're taught to suppress that wildness, to fit in.
Exactly. The book really speaks to reclaiming that wild part of ourselves, nurturing it back to life. And she uses stories to guide us on that journey.
And those stories, they're not like your average fairy tales. I mean, they're drawn from all sorts of cultures and traditions, right?
Yes. Myths, folklore, personal anecdotes. It's like this tapestry of wisdom from all these different places. And it's no coincidence her own background is so rich. Imagine growing up surrounded by women from all these different cultures, sharing their stories and wisdom.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. It's like her own life experience really primed her to be this storyteller, this bridge between psychology and these ancient narratives.
You got it. It's like she's translating these timeless truths into a language we can actually understand, a language we can apply to our own lives.
And speaking of those stories, was there one that stood out to you? I know. There's so many to choose from.
I know, right? There are. But Bluebeard, that one stayed with me.
Oh, me too.
I know. It's chilling, but it's incredibly insightful.
Yeah.
It delves into this whole idea of the predator within the psyche.
Ooh.
And I think that's so important, especially for women, learning to recognize those red flags, those signs of danger, both within ourselves and in the world around us.
It's almost like a survival guide, right?
Yeah.
Teaching us to trust those gut instincts, to pay attention to those warning signs.
You got it. It's exactly like that. And on a totally different note, Skeleton Woman. That one really stood out too. It explores the cyclical nature of life and death, especially in relationships.
Yeah, that story, I don't know, it resonated with me on like a visceral level. It's about embracing those cycles, not fearing them.
And that's a powerful message, isn't it? Because so often we try to cling to things, resist change. But what if we learn to surrender to those cycles of death and rebirth? What if we saw those endings not as failures, but as opportunities for renewal?
Whoa, that is deep. It makes me think about how we can apply that to our own lives, not just in romantic relationships, but in careers, friendships, even our own personal growth. Like maybe those times when we feel like we're falling apart, those are actually the moments we're being broken open so something new can emerge.
You got it. It's like that saying, the only way out is through. You have to go through that darkness, that messy middle, to reach the light on the other side.
That is so good. And speaking of finding the light, Vasilisa the Wise, that one is all about trusting that intuition, that inner voice that guides us through difficult times, right?
It is.
Oh, and that little doll she carries, representing her intuition. It reminds me that sometimes our inner wisdom comes in small packages.
Right.
We have to learn to listen closely to hear those whispers. This whole idea of listening to that inner voice reminds me of Los Ovarios, which Estes talks about, the ovaries, as a source of deep knowing.
Oh, yeah. And what's so fascinating about that is how it grounds wisdom in the female body.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just intellectual knowledge. It's a visceral, primal knowing that comes from our experiences as women, our connection to creation, our cyclical nature. It's like she's saying, hey, your body is a source of wisdom too. Listen to it.
That's powerful. That really resonates with me. It's like she's validating those gut feelings, those intuitive nudges that we often brush aside. And speaking of things we sometimes dismiss, another story that really stuck with me is La Loba. It's about gathering those scattered bones and singing life back into them.
Right, yes. It's like this powerful metaphor for reclaiming those lost parts of ourselves. And I think that's something so many women can relate to, the feeling of being fragmented.
Yeah. Yeah.
Scattered, like we've lost pieces of ourselves along the way.
Totally. Think about a time when you felt, burnt out, depleted, like you'd lost your spark. What if, like La Loba, you could gather those lost pieces of yourself, those passions and dreams you've set aside, and breathe life back into them? I mean, how would that change your life?
It's a beautiful image, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's not just about passively gathering the pieces. It's about that active, like singing of life back into them. It's about infusing those lost parts of ourselves with our creative energy, our unique voice. It's about reclaiming our power.
Okay, I am getting chills. We've covered some, pretty heavy stuff so far. How about we lighten things up a bit with The Handless Maiden? That one felt more like, I don't know, a roadmap for a woman's entire life journey.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's about navigating betrayal, loss, and ultimately finding that empowerment. And it's interesting how Estes uses that loss of hands to symbolize, a stripping away of what we thought we needed, which then leads us to discover our inner resources.
It's like she's saying that sometimes we have to lose everything we thought defined us in order to discover our true strength, That resonates with me because I've definitely had moments in my life where I felt like I was, falling apart. But in those moments of breakdown, I also found a resilience I didn't even know I had. Have you ever felt that way?
I have. And it's often in those moments of greatest vulnerability that we discover our greatest strength.
Yeah.
Like the Handless Maiden having to rely on her intuition, her connection to nature, her inner guidance to navigate the challenges that she faces. It's a really powerful message of resilience and transformation.
And what I find so inspiring is that she's not alone on that journey. She has the spirit in white as her guide, right? It's a symbol of her own inner wisdom and the support that's available to her, even in those, darkest of times. And it reminds us that we're never really alone. There's always guidance available to us if we're just open to receiving it. That's so true. And sometimes those guides, they come in the most unexpected forms. Like in Vasilisa the Wise, it's that little doll that represents her intuition, offering, guidance and support at every turn. It's a reminder that our intuition, that inner voice, is a powerful resource. Even if it seems, I don't know, small or insignificant at first, we have to learn to listen to it.
And sometimes that inner voice, it leads us to these unexpected places.
Yeah.
Like in The Ugly Duckling, where the young duckling is ostracized for being different, but he ultimately finds his true belonging with a flock of swans. It's a reminder that our uniqueness is a gift, even if it takes time to find our place in the world. What I love about that story is how it speaks to the idea of the psychic family, those kindred spirits who see and appreciate our authentic selves, even if our biological family or society at large doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's such an important point. I mean, finding those kindred spirits, those people who really get you, who celebrate your quirks and embrace your wildness, that can be life-changing. They provide, that acceptance and validation that we need to blossom into our full potential.
Absolutely. And sometimes those psychic families, you can find them in the most unexpected places. Maybe it's a support group, a creative community, even online forums where people share common interests or experiences. It's about seeking out those connections, those connections that nourish our souls.
Yeah, totally. Now, we've talked about some of the positive aspects of reclaiming that wild nature, the creativity, intuition, resilience. But Estes also acknowledges the potential dangers of denying or suppressing those instincts, right?
Right.
And that's where the story of the red shoes comes in.
Oh, the red shoes. That one is both, I don't know, captivating and cautionary, right?
It really is. The young girl in the story, she becomes obsessed with those red shoes, which symbolize her repressed desires. And in her pursuit of those desires, she loses her ability to control her own life.
Wow. It's a powerful illustration of what can happen when we try to fit ourselves into a mold that doesn't honor our true selves. It makes me think about all the pressures women face to conform, to be, good, to be nice, to put everyone else's needs before their own. These messages can be so ingrained we don't even realize how much they're limiting us.
Yeah, it's a form of cultural conditioning. It can be so difficult to break free from. But these stories, the stories in this book, they offer a different perspective. A reminder that our wild nature is not something to be feared or suppressed, but embraced and celebrated.
That's so liberating. It's like she's giving us permission to break free from those limiting beliefs and embrace the fullness of who we are, wildness and all.
Exactly. And that embrace can be a lifelong journey, a journey full of twists and turns, challenges and triumphs.
And speaking of journeys, The Handless Maiden really highlights that cyclical nature of transformation, doesn't it?
It does. It's not a quick fix or, a one-time transformation. It's a process of descent and ascent, loss and recovery, death and rebirth, much like the story of Skeleton Woman.
Right. It's like a spiral staircase. Each level it builds upon the one before. And even within those like broad stages, there are countless cycles of death and renewal. It's a reminder that growth and transformation are ongoing processes. They're not destinations.
Absolutely. And each cycle offers an opportunity for deeper understanding and growth.
You know, what's really striking me is how much these stories resonate with real life experiences. It's not just about, ancient myths and fairy tales. It's about the universal truths of the feminine experience. Okay, before we dive into more of those truths, let's pause for a moment. What's standing out to you so far? What's resonating most deeply with you?
It's hard to pick just one thing. The whole idea of cyclical transformation is so powerful. You see it in Skeleton Woman, in La Loba, even in The Handless Maiden. It's a reminder that life isn't a straight line. It's a spiral.
It is. And it makes me think about how we resist those cycles, We cling to what's familiar even when it's no longer serving us. We fear that unknown, that messy in-between space where transformation happens. But maybe those are the spaces where the real magic unfolds.
I think you're right. Think about a caterpillar dissolving into like a formless soup before it becomes a butterfly, right? We have to surrender to the process, trust that something beautiful will emerge from what looks like chaos. It's about letting go, embracing the unknown, and having faith in that innate capacity for renewal.
Which takes me back to reclaiming our wild woman nature. It's not about rebelling against society or anything, but it's about reconnecting with that deep instinctual wisdom we all have.
Yes. It's about honoring, our intuition, creativity, and connection to nature. It's about remembering who we are at our core, beneath all those layers of conditioning and societal expectations.
And that remembering, it can be a journey, lots of twists and turns. But as Estes shows us, that path is always there. It's like a hidden trail leading us back to our true selves. And sometimes we need a guide to help us find that trail, right? That's where the stories come in.
Absolutely. They're like maps for the soul, illuminating the path, offering wisdom from those who have walked it before us, like in Vasilisa the Wise, that little doll, right? Representing her intuition. It's like this reminder to trust that inner voice, even when it seems small or insignificant.
It's about learning to listen to those whispers of wisdom, those gut feelings we ignore them. It's about recognizing that our intuition, it's a powerful resource, like a compass that's guiding us through life's challenges. And sometimes those challenges, they involve facing those darker aspects of ourselves, the shadow side that we tend to hide away.
Right. And that's where a story like Bluebeard can be so insightful. It's chilling, yes, but it teaches us to be aware of those red flags, those subtle signs of danger, both within ourselves and in the world around us.
It's like a reminder to pay attention to those gut feelings, those warning bells that go off when someone feels off. And speaking of things feeling off, La Llorona, that story about the weeping woman searching for her lost children. That one, I don't know why that one really got to me.
La Llorona, she's a haunting image, isn't she, of grief and despair. And Estes uses it to symbolize how negative forces, both internal and external, can pollute our creative life force, that wellspring of energy within us.
And it makes me think about how we become complicit in our own creative poisoning, Maybe we listen to those voices that tell us we're not good enough, or let fear hold us back from pursuing our passions. It's like we're handing over the keys to our creative kingdom to those who would, exploit it or destroy it.
It's a subtle form of self-sabotage, but it's insidious. But the good news is, like La Loba gathering those scattered gones, we have the power to reclaim those lost creative fragments and sing them back to life.
Yes. It's about recognizing those patterns of self-sabotage and making a conscious choice to break free. It's about reclaiming our power, our voice, our creative spark. And sometimes that reclaiming involves a stripping away, a shedding of what no longer serves us.
That's right. And that's where the Handless Maiden comes in, right? The loss of her hands. It's symbolic. It represents a stripping away of what we thought we needed, forcing us to rely on our inner resources, our intuition, our connection to the wild.
It's like she's forced to let go of everything she thought defined her. And in that process, she discovers a deeper, more authentic strength. Have you ever felt like life stripped you bare, like you'd lost something essential?
I have. And it's amazing how in those moments of seeming loss, we often discover a strength we didn't even know we had. We tap into this resilience that's been there all along. But maybe maybe it was hidden beneath the surface.
It's like that phoenix rising from the ashes. Right. Stronger, more beautiful than before. And it's not just about, individual resilience. It's also about finding those sources of support, those guides who can help us navigate, the darkness.
Exactly, like the spirit in white that guides the handless maiden.
Yeah.
It's a symbol of her own inner wisdom and the support that's available to her, even in those darkest of times. It's a reminder that we're not alone on this journey. There are always sources of guidance and support available to us if we're just open to receiving them.
And sometimes that support, it comes from the most unexpected places, like in The Ugly Duckling, where the duckling he's ostracized by his own kind, but he finds acceptance and belonging with a flock of swans. It's a reminder that our psychic family, it might not be the people we're related to by blood, but rather those kindred spirits who see and appreciate our true selves.
Finding those kindred spirits, it can be such a gift. They provide a sense of belonging, a safe haven where we can be ourselves, without judgment or pretense.
Absolutely. And that feeling of belonging, of being seen, of being accepted for who we truly are, that can be so healing. It's like finding that missing piece of the puzzle, that sense of wholeness that we've been yearning for.
Yeah. And it's not just about finding our place in the world. It's also about embracing our unique gifts, right?
Yeah.
Even those parts of ourselves that make us feel different or out of place.
Like the ugly duckling. We might be ridiculed or rejected for being different, but ultimately it's our uniqueness, it's our strength, it's what sets us apart, it's what makes us special.
And it's in that embracing of our uniqueness, of our wild nature, that we find our true power.
I love that. It's like Estes is saying, don't try to fit in, don't try to be what other people expect you to be. Embrace your wildness, embrace your uniqueness. That's where your true power lies.
And that embrace, well, it can be a lifelong journey, can't it? Mm-hmm. Full of ups and downs, twists and turns. But it's a journey worth taking, a journey of self-discovery, of reclaiming our power, of coming home to ourselves.
I couldn't agree more. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious, what's been the most impactful story for you so far? Which one has really resonated or sparked a new insight?
It's hard to choose, Each one speaks to me in different ways, but I think what's resonating most deeply right now, it's that theme of resilience. It runs through so many of them, the handless maiden, skeleton woman, even Loba piecing herself back together. They all point to this incredible capacity for healing and transformation, this capacity that exists, within the feminine psyche.
It's so true. Like, no matter what we face, no matter how broken or fragmented we may feel, there's always this spark within us. And that spark, that wild essence, can't be extinguished. It's always there, waiting to be rekindled.
And sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom to realize just how strong we are. Like the handless maiden, sometimes we have to lose everything we thought we needed. And in that process, we discover the strength that resides within.
It's like we're stripped bare. Forced to confront our deepest fears, our vulnerabilities. And in that process, we find a resilience we didn't even know we had. We tap into this wellspring of strength that's been there all along, hidden beneath the surface.
And it's not just about, individual resilience. It's also about the power of connection. It's about finding those kindred spirits, right? The ones who see us, support us, remind us of our worth.
Yes. Like the ugly duckling finding his flock of swans, or Vasilisa the Wise, guided by her intuition, by that little doll. Those stories, they remind us that we're not meant to walk this path alone, all right? There's always guidance, there's always support available to us if we're open to it.
And sometimes those guides, they come in the most unexpected forms. Maybe it's a mentor or a therapist or a friend, or even a stranger who offers a kind word or a listening ear. It's about being open to those connections, to those moments of grace that can help us, help us navigate those challenges, those tough times, and help us find our way back to wholeness.
Speaking of wholeness, I'm curious about this concept of the animus that Estes talks about. She describes it as, the masculine element within the feminine psyche, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around what that actually means, in practical terms.
Yeah, it is a complex concept. As Estes points out, that the animus, it can manifest in both constructive and destructive ways. So it can be a source of assertiveness, strength, even creative power, right? Helping us to bring our ideas to life. But it can also turn into like this critical inner voice, a saboteur, even a predator if it's not integrated in a healthy way.
So it's like we've got this wild stallion within us, powerful, but potentially dangerous if we don't learn to tame it, to harness its energy in a way that serves us. It makes me think about those times when I get stuck in self-doubt, or I let that inner critic just run rampant. It's like I'm letting the animus sabotage me instead of channeling its power, constructively.
Exactly. It's about recognizing those different expressions of the animus and consciously choosing, how we engage with it. Do we let it lead us down a path of self-destruction?
Right.
Or do we harness its power for growth and transformation?
That's a powerful question. And it makes me wonder, how do we even begin to tame that wild stallion within? How do we differentiate between, the constructive and destructive expressions of the animus?
That's where the work of self-awareness comes in, I think.
Yeah.
It's about, paying attention to our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors, noticing those patterns that keep us, stuck, or those patterns that lead us down that path of self-sabotage, and, seeking out those sources of support, therapy, journaling, meditation, the things that can help us develop a deeper understanding of ourselves.
So it sounds like a journey of self-discovery, learning to recognize those voices within and choosing which ones to listen to. And it makes me think about the importance of intentional solitude, another concept Estes emphasizes, right? It's not just about being alone, it's about creating space for ourselves, to connect with our inner wisdom, to hear those whispers of intuition, the whispers that can guide us on our path.
You got it. It's about carving out that time for reflection, for listening to those inner voices, for replenishing our creative wells. And in a world that's constantly bombarding us with stimuli, just carving out that space for intentional solitude can be, it can be a radical act of self-care.
It is. It's like hitting the pause button, on that whirlwind of daily life, and just giving ourselves permission to simply be, to listen, to reconnect with our own wild nature. And from that place of deep connection, I feel like we can emerge, renewed, revitalized, and ready to engage with the world, but in a more authentic and empowered way.
As we're wrapping up this deep dive, I keep coming back to this idea of women who run with the wolves as a guidebook for the soul.
Yeah.
It's not just about, women, it's about reclaiming that wild instinctual nature that resides within all of us, regardless of gender.
Oh, I love that. It's about embracing our intuition, our creativity, our connection to nature, our capacity for deep feeling and healing. It's about remembering who we are at our core, beneath all those layers of conditioning, those societal expectations.
And as we awaken to that wild nature within, as we reclaim those lost parts of ourselves, we create this ripple effect that extends outward, transforming not only our own lives, but also the world around us.
It's like a collective awakening, a symphony of wild souls, each playing their own unique instrument, creating a harmony that's both beautiful and powerful.
And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's not about, conforming to a single definition of wildness. It's about each of us embracing our own unique expression of that wild essence and creating a tapestry of diverse voices, a tapestry of diverse experiences.
What a beautiful image. Well, as we bring this deep dive to a close, I want to leave you with a final thought. If, as Estes suggests, the wild woman archetype is present in all of us, what would happen if we all embraced that wildish nature? What kind of world could we create?
That's a powerful question, and one that we encourage all of you to explore. Share your thoughts, share your insights, share your experiences with the wild woman archetype on our social media channels, or drop us an email. We'd love to hear from you.
And remember, this deep dive, it's just a taste of the richness and depth of women who run with the wolves. So I encourage you to, seek out the book for yourselves. Embark on your own journey of discovery. Who knows what treasures you might unearth?
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep running wild.